Hello and welcome to Magic Concepts, the series where we explore different magic concepts starting from zero base knowledge in the game and going all the way through Pro Tour level strategies. Today we are starting into the specific deck strategies that you will see and might want to keep in mind while building your decks. Today we're going to be going over possibly the simplest strategy while building a deck, and that is a linear strategy. So traditionally, when you're thinking about a game of Magic the Gathering, you've got creatures attacking, creatures blocking, there's removal spells flying back and forth, permission spells preventing you from casting, and there's this back and forth battle between the opponents, but not this time. Today we are focusing on a linear strategy that is an all-in-one theme or goal. And so your deck is going to focus around one or two cards that really drive the strategy, and every card in your deck is going to support whatever that theme is. Your deck has no interest in deviating from this theme. Everything is going all in on this one goal, and you basically more or less ignore your opponent. Different decks you'll see that use a linear strategy are going to be either a tribal deck that focus all on one creature type, like elves or merfolk. Another linear strategy that we are actually going to be focusing on in this particular deck today is combo. So with a linear strategy, you're going to go from turn 1 to the end of the game in roughly a straight line. You're going to make use of very specific card interactions to create an overwhelming effect or board state. Like we saw in our last slide, the enchantment All Will Be One. Whenever a counter is placed on a permanent, you deal 1 point of damage. With Obnixilis Captive Kingpin, whenever one or more opponents lose exactly 1 life, by taking a point of damage for instance, he gets a +1/+1 counter. Since a counter is placed on Obnixilis Captive Kingpin, All Will Be One will trigger again to do 1 point of damage, and so on. So once this combo is started, there is no real way to stop it. And you create this overwhelming effect that ends the game immediately. And that is what a combo deck, or a linear strategy, is really looking to accomplish. So the strengths of a linear strategy is that they are potentially extremely explosive and powerful. Like we saw, you get this infinite loop. These decks do not play a fair game of Magic, in that there is no give or take. There's really no build up. You just hit your combo and you win. It is a very focused strategy and designed to spiral out of control if left unchecked. Another combo that exists is with the oni-cult Anvil. As you can see, whenever one or more artifacts leave the battlefield, you create a 1/1 construct artifact creature token. And with oni-cult Anvil, you can sacrifice an artifact to deal 1 point of damage and gain 1 life back. And so really this combos with itself. If you have multiple anvils out, you can sacrifice one of your colorless construct artifact tokens, and you will create one, because an artifact left play, for each oni-cult Anvil you control. So if you have all 4 in play, you can sacrifice 1 creature and get back 4. And as we can see, that would very quickly spiral out of control. However, linear strategies do have some very strong weaknesses. The first is that their individual cards are very relatively weak. For example, Voldaren Epicure is just a 1/1 for 1. The real strength of a linear strategy is it relies on achieving a critical mass of creatures or effects or of cards, whatever the deck is centered around. It needs that critical mass in order to really achieve its peak potential. So if these combo pieces can be destroyed, or any creature-based synergies removed, then the entire strategy just falls apart, and the deck does literally nothing. Because you are so focused on your combo or your synergies, you're often unable to interact very meaningfully with an opponent's board. You're not going to see very much removal in a deck, because you're basing your entire game plan on being faster than your opponent, on hitting your combo before they can stop you, and making this powerful interaction that they simply can't come back from. Linear strategies are often very obvious and easy to attack. So if you drop Obnixilis Captive Kingpin, it's very obvious that you're going for the all will be one combo. With oni-cult Anvil, it's obvious that you're going to be creating this mass of 1/1 armies. And so your opponent can very easily pick which spells to either counter with a counter spell at the right time to just completely devastate your combo, or removal cards like Go for the Throat to kill Obnixilis before All Will Be One can enter play. Generally, the more extreme a strategy is, like a combo deck that needs two very specific cards to function, the easier it is to sideboard against. We haven't really talked about sideboarding a whole lot in this series, and there will be another video on it coming up, but most Magic the Gathering games are played best 2 out of 3, and so after your first game you have a chance to sideboard, to bring in different cards tailored against your opponent. And so if you are playing a 2 out of 3 match, then these extreme linear strategies become a lot worse after sideboard, because your opponent can bring in cards like Cut Down or Go for the Throat to really mess up the strategy. And so in a linear deck, a combo deck, or a tribal deck, it's very important to protect your weaknesses. So since you have generally very little in the way of actual interaction, finding multi-use cards can make the difference between winning or losing. A card like Bloodtithe Harvester enters the battlefield, gives you a blood token that your oni-cult Anvil can utilize to create the massive 1/1 armies, but he himself can be a removal spell to get rid of your opponent's key threats. You're not going to want to put in dedicated removal over Harvester, because that dedicated removal isn't going to progress your strategy, because Harvester gives you that blood token that can then fuel the anvils. And that blood token itself can help filter your draws. If you sacrifice your blood token, discard a card, you can draw a card, and that will help you find your combo pieces. That will help you find Obnixilis. That will help you find All Will Be One. And so a card like this really helps progress your strategy, and removing it, even for dedicated removal to counteract your opponent, would hurt your deck more than it would help. And so in combo decks, it's very important to remember your key interactions. The first one in this particular deck, obviously, is Obnixilis versus All Will Be One. How these two cards bounce off of each other. Obnixilis gets a counter. All Will Be One deals a damage, which gives Obnixilis a counter. And then back and forth, and they just snowball out of control. Another way to protect your weaknesses in a linear or combo deck is to have an alternate win condition. So if they're expecting Obnixilis All Will Be One, then you have a backup plan or a backup combo of oni-cult Anvil and all of these blood tokens that you're generating. So you can use your Voldaren Epicure, you can use your Bloodtithe Harvester to bring blood tokens into play. You can sacrifice those blood tokens to oni-cult Anvil to make a bunch of 1/1 artifacts. You can sacrifice all of your artifacts to leech life off of your opponent 1 damage at a time. And so all of these key combos and interactions are what make the linear strategy possible. And we're going to see some of these in the gameplay coming up. What we're really going to see is that the linear strategy is all in. So any deviation from the theme will weaken the deck, possibly to the point where it's unplayable. There is an almost exclusive focus on the deck's own plan of action. So you will not see very many cards at all that do not in some way help the Obnixilis plan, help the oni-cult Anvil plan, or find ways to get those in action. And there's often very little interaction with your opponent. The decks generally win by a critical mass of either creatures or effects, and creates a massively overpowering board state by the way these cards bounce off of each other. The deck relies on its own power and speed to win the race against the opponent, to get the cards out, and to enact damage before the opponent can reply. But if your opponent is ready for the deck, it can be very easy to stop your plan. So let's go ahead and get into some gameplay and show you what this combo deck can really do. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and keep this hand. We've got a couple mana, we've got the rest of our stuff. As you can see, I'm playing against Sparky the Robot. That's not because this deck sucks. I do have a playthrough of this deck on my YouTube channel, so check that out to see how it actually did. This is mostly because opponents know the combo, and so whenever they saw like a part of it come down, they were either able to destroy it or not, and then they scooped before the combo could actually go off. So I'm going against Sparky here so that I have a little bit more control over my opponent, so we can see what the deck does and how the deck does it. So we do have multiple anvils out here. Unfortunately, I don't have much else to do. Hopefully, they don't just drop some huge bomb here. If I take 1-2 damage at a time, that's not really too bad. If he ends up dropping something really huge, well, I've got a go for the throat, so that's not too bad. Alright, so here we can drop anvil and research desk. And this will kind of showcase one of the strengths of this deck, because I can use an anvil to blow up the desk, and now suddenly I have 3 1/1 tokens. Unfortunately, I don't have go for the throat anymore because I used all my mana to do that, but okay, well that creature's not too big. So let's go ahead and drop another research desk. This time we'll use the research desk as intended to dig 2 cards deep and see what we can find. It still leaves play, so I still get my 3 constructs. I've already got to go for the throat. I'm going to take the mountain here so I can make my land turn, and next turn I'll be able to drop all will be 1. So I can swing in with my 1/1s, but nothing will really happen. So we'll just pass the turn. He's not attacking, he's not doing anything, so let's go ahead and kill the pack hunter, just so I don't leave a bunch of mana open. We'll go ahead and drop all will be 1. So I've got part of my combo out. One of the major synergies of the deck with oni-cult Anvil, if you have multiples out, we can sacrifice one of our creatures to make 3 more. So we're still growing our board, even by sacking a creature. It doesn't look like Sparky's got anything in hand, otherwise she probably would have cast it. I am not too worried about a 1/2, but I can go ahead and put some cards in front of it. If Sparky had some kind of pump spell that would make this not a trade-off, I could have used my oni-cult anvils to sacrifice the constructs. Instead of them just dying to damage, they would die and deal damage to my opponent instead. But since Sparky's going to go ahead with the trade, we'll go ahead with the trade. Pass on to my turn for another land. So this costs 2 to unearth, 1 to activate, which would give me 4 mana open, which is what I need to cast Ob-Nixilis. So let's go ahead and do this. If I hit Ob-Nixilis off of this activation, I should still be able to cast it. And I'll get my 3 tokens from the oni-cult anvils. All I get is more land, so that can go into the bin. So this is the same deal as last turn. If Sparky has a pump spell, I can sack it to the anvil to leech 1 life instead of just losing a creature. But Sparky is just kind of attacking just to attack at this point. Her hand is apparently not helping her out. And neither is mine, so we'll go ahead and do research desk again. And we'll draw 2 more cards, make 3 more tokens, and all we find is a harvester. Okay, harvester it is. The blood token, which we could actually use to filter our deck a little bit. At this point, I should be attacking. I've got 9 tokens. He has 1 defender. So swinging out is definitely what I should be doing, except I kind of want to showcase the combo, so I don't want to do that. Alright, so here, Bite is just going to kill my construct, so there's no reason to let it die in vain. We'll go ahead and sacrifice it to deal 1 damage. Rabid Bite then just kind of fizzles, and we get another shot at Ob-Nixilis, Captive Kingpin. Alright. So now that we have Ob-Nixilis on the field, we have some options. Our combo is established. I can either use oni-cult Anvil to blow up a token to do 1 damage. I can use Voldaren Epicure to do 1 damage. I could attack. All of these things will deal exactly 1 damage. And by doing 1 damage, we start the combo chain, where Ob-Nixilis gets a counter. All will be won because Ob-Nixilis got a counter. We'll now do 1 damage to any target. So we'll target our opponent. Our opponent deals 1 damage. Ob-Nixilis gets a counter. All will be won triggers. And so on indefinitely until Sparky dies.
You've done it.
And that's the combo. So we got to see the synergies of the combo with oni-cult, and we got to see the big explosive finish itself. And so that is really the power of combo decks or linear strategies. And so this is our deck as is. As you can see, we did have some extra room to put in some removal so that we would have interaction with our opponent, which would actually shore up one of the weaknesses of the combo decks, which is that there's very little interaction. Invasion of Asgol with March of the Machines is another great addition to this archetype, because the 1 life that it deals on enter can also trigger Ob-Nixilis, and all will be won to get that combo rolling. But yeah, we got to see oni-cult Anvil, how having multiples of those on the field can really just build a creature base, a nice little wall of blockers that the opponent can't really get through, filtering our deck through Mishra's Research Desk or the blood tokens created by Voldaren Epicure and Blood Tithe Harvester, along with my Sanguine Statuette. All of those together just synergizes so harmoniously with not only Anvil and getting creatures out, but with Ob-Nixilis itself doing exactly 1 damage, making the opponent lose exactly 1 life to give him a counter and drop a damage with all will be won, and just getting that combo off the ground. So, like I said, linear strategies are quite possibly one of the easiest strategies to start out with. If you like this deck, feel free to build it. It does require a few mythic wildcards for All Will Be One and Ob-Nixilis, but honestly the rest of the deck is commons and uncommons for the most part. So yeah, feel free to start with this if you want to get your hands into some deck building. Let me know in the comments below how it goes. What are some of your favorite Magic the Gathering combos? And stay tuned for the rest of this series, where we will go into the different deck strategies of aggro, mid-range, and control coming up on Magic Concepts. So, until then, I will see you in the next video.